Welcome to the Squirrel Tale. This is my first video on the basics of muzzleloader series. I'm going to start with the topic of safety. Now I want to put out a quick disclaimer here. I'm not like a certified range officer or anything like that. This is just an enthusiast giving a general reference on muzzleloader safety. But if you like this kind of content, make sure you hit that like button. Now, the first thing in muzzleloader safety is the 6 basic rules of firearm safety. Still apply. Treat every gun if it is loaded. Don't point any gun at something you don't intend or willing to destroy. Know what is beyond your target. Keep your finger off the trigger till you intend to fire. Wear ear and eye protection. Use only guns in safe working order with proper ammunition. If these are not familiar, please do some more research before you go shooting. Now, muzzleloadings are not more dangerous, but they do have some quirks. There's some things that make them different than modern firearms. The first is dealing with exposed powder. Unlike modern firearms, you are actually pouring out loose powder on the range, and it's not sealed in a case. If you are loading, it's always important to use a powder measure and never load directly from a horn or a can. Also, and this is for several reasons, the big one is you don't want a whole can of gunpowder to blow up if there is a hot amber in the gun. It's better to just have 80 grains go off than a whole can. The second thing with this is always make sure you seal your horn and your can or flask when shooting, especially with a flintlock, because there will be sparks around. One of those sparks goes in the can, now you have a hole, or in your horn, now you have a large explosion on your hand. And the last thing is be careful around open fires and don't smoke while loading your muzzleloader. You might think you're cool with a cigar loading your muzzleloader, but you'll be rather hot if your powder horn blows up. Second thing I want to talk about, it deals with this style of powder measure. Now, I use this style of powder measure a lot and have been very successful with it, but that little thumb screw can come loose, especially if it's bouncing in your hunting bag. And now instead of 70 grains, it can come all the way down to 120. And if you're trying to, especially in like a hunting scenario, get that quick reload, and you don't realize this came loose, you might accidentally overcharge your gun. Then, the next thing I want to discuss is the powder itself. You want to make sure you buy the correct powder that is recommended in either your owner's manual or a good source to use. Now, with muzzleloaders, you are either using black powder or a black powder substitute, never smokeless powder. You want to make sure you are buying the powder from a reputable resource with a reputable brand like GoX or Swiss or Schutzen. And you need to be very careful getting powder from the second-hand market, especially if the container is open or it's not in the original container. You don't want to risk someone putting smokeless powder in a black powder can and then putting that in your muzzleloader, causing the gun to explode, or someone giving you like a mason jar full of black powder when in reality it's smokeless, and if you don't know how to tell the difference, you could be in for a bad day. The next thing deals with different kinds of making sure you use the correct projectiles. Now, modern ammunition is normally on the back of it is labeled like this 12 gauge shell. You can clearly see it's 12 gauge. Your muzzleloader balls are not labeled. Now, it would be pretty obvious to tell the difference between a 36 and a 75, and you're unlikely to get those mixed up. But when you have two that are close in size, like 50 and 45, or like a 457 and a 44 round ball, there's a potential to get them mixed up, and then you'll end up trying to load the wrong ball in the wrong gun, and that can create an issue. If the ball seems to be hard going in, don't keep ramming it down. Stop and pull the ball. The next thing I want to mention is always make sure your ball is up against the powder when loading. If you have an air gap, that can create a situation of overpressure. You need your patchen ball to be resting against the powder. So when you take your ramrod down, when you have it up against the ball, it'll bounce like that. Now that's bouncing off the breech plug, but it'll do the same if everything is tight. I also recommend putting a mark on your ramrod when it's properly seated for future reference. And you also want to be careful when using a short starter or ball starter. Now, a ball starter looks like this. There are a couple different versions. This is a homemade one. Check out my video on how to do this. Link will be in the end. Now this, what it does is it helps you get the ball started a few inches, so when you take your long ramrod, it's not bouncing off the end and makes it easier to load. But what can happen is you start it, maybe you get distracted, and then you shoot the gun without ramming the ball all the way down. This can create an issue of overpressure and potentially cause the gun to blow up. So that's something to keep in mind. Make sure you always ram the ball all the way down. The last thing I want to discuss is when dealing with other people at the range. It's very important to be careful. Do not engage in conversations while loading. This can lead to mistakes in your loading procedure. Also, if you have a misfire, treat the range as though it is hot and don't let anyone go down until your issue is resolved. While starting out, I would recommend going to shoot your muzzleloader at either a private range or on days that are less busy. That way, you're not getting distracted. You're not making other people frustrated. You can really focus on getting the procedure down. If you decide to shoot your muzzleloader for the first time ever on the Saturday before deer season, you might make some people frustrated. So again, and like always, use common sense when doing this stuff. Now, I'm sure there's other things that can be brought up, and I would like to hear which things you think should have been added to the video in the comments. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you like and subscribe, and have a good day.